Hi guys, I'm Jocelyn from Dietitian Meets Mom, and I'm registered dietitian, mom of two, and today I'm going to be talking all about babies and sugar. So before we dive into the recommendations and why the recommendations are what they are and what worked for my family, I just want to remind you that every family is different. Your family is different than my family, and even every kid, every child within each family is different. So, what works for one of your children may not work the same for another one, and that's okay. I think the important thing is to recognize the recommendations and just do to the best of your ability and what you feel like is best for your family at the time. So let's get started. So the official recommendations is no added sugar before the age of 2. So the first 2 years of life, it's important to really focus on nutrient-rich foods. And the new 2020 dietary guidelines do recommend no added sugar. Basically, added sugar is going to be any kind of sweetener that does not naturally occur. So, maple syrup, yes, that's added sugar. Honey is added sugar. Coconut sugar is added sugar. When you go to look at the food label, some words that you're going to look for: dextrose, molasses, those are added sugars. There's a bunch of words. If you want to look up the list, you can find that. But and then at home when we cook, sometimes, and I do this, I use a lot of honey, a lot of maple syrup in my recipes, just because it is a less processed way to sweeten things. But for our little ones, it's still, for anyone, it's still added sugar. So we still need to be careful with the amounts of those kinds of things. It's still sugar. Added sugar can be found in a lot of packaged and processed foods. It's not just in sweets and treats and desserts, which is where we normally think of it occurring. But actually, it's in ketchup, it's in barbecue sauce, it's in, box mixes and packages. There's a lot of different places that you'll find it hidden. Little baby yogurts have added sugar, so just buy plain yogurt. If you want to make it sweeter at home, you can always use just fruit to sweeten it up for your little one. There are several reasons for this recommendation and why it is the age of 2. The first 2 years of life are important for shaping taste preferences, and babies are actually born with a predisposition to preferring sweet flavors. And that's just because amniotic fluid is sweet, breast milk is sweet. They're used to the sweetness, and that's comfortable, that's familiar to them. Because they're predisposed to liking sweets, if they are served extra sweets during that first couple years of life, that could really kind of encourage that taste preference throughout the entire lifespan of your child. So really what we're seeing is this simple decision that could influence them for the rest of their life and maybe make it easier for them to make healthful choices when they're older. The second reason it's important is babies need a lot of really high nutrient dense foods, and sweets and treats are usually packed with a lot of calories but don't provide that nutrition that's so important for their developing brains and their developing bodies. They're just growing so rapidly that every nutrient is pretty important at that age. The third thing is added sugar consumed in excess is just linked to a lot of health problems and obesity, cavities in their teeth. So all of these things come together to sort of form those recommendations. Unfortunately, research shows that 60% of infants have already had added sugars. So the most popular question I get is, are you not depriving them of having desserts and treats? A 1-year-old is not going to realize if they aren't being given sugar. They don't know it exists. They don't know what a cookie is unless they've had one. So, once you give a first cookie, then they may recognize it and they'll probably want more of it. But if you don't, then they're not going to know what it is. The reason we say 2 is because around that age, sometimes sooner, 18 months to 2, somewhere in there, a child is going to be developmentally at the point where they're going to notice more what other people are eating. And in that point, if a child is asking for the same dessert that other people are enjoying, it wouldn't be so beneficial to withhold that from them. That's when we could go into sort of a point of the child feeling restricted. But when they're usually below 2, they are not going to notice if you give them something else that they enjoy while the rest of the family is eating a dessert. So there's a few different ways that you can approach this. When obviously if you have a 6-month-old or a 9-month-old, they're not going to know, if everybody's eating dessert, you're not even going to have to be that strategic about it. Just don't give it to them. But if you do have like an 18-month-old and you're still avoiding dessert with them, you can either serve it, if you're just having it at home with your own family, you can do it while they nap, and have it with your older kids at that time. If you're out and about and a dessert, if you're at a birthday party and cupcakes come out, then you could always pack along a extra treat for them. So what I would do with my son before he turned 2 is we would usually have some kind of fruit in the diaper bag that he could have if a dessert was pulled out. Sometimes I would even bring my own no sugar added muffins, like pumpkin muffins. I've got a recipe in a video that I'll link to below for those. But I could usually even just give him a banana because he loves bananas. So I have all kinds of recipes for healthy no sugar treats that you can give to your little toddlers and babies on my website. You can check that out. I'll link them below. But I've got recipes for pumpkin muffins, toddler cookies. If you go back and watch my video last week, I've got a fruit sweetened smash cake that I gave to both my kids now that doesn't have added sugar. It's just sweetened with applesauce and bananas. So a question about juice. Juice is not recommended for babies, and I think the recommendation for age 1 to 3 is like 4 ounces or less of juice a day. So not very much juice. In my house, we don't really do juice. It's just kind of a special thing that is every now and then. Can babies have honey? The thing about honey is we definitely want to avoid honey under age 1 because of infant botulism. After 1, it's not going to be like immediately detrimental to them. It's more just avoiding it for the sake of avoiding added sugars. I think the key thing to remember is that sweets and treats and sugar can kind of displace more important nutrients if we're not careful in a young child's diet. And then the other thing is taste preference is really, really, truly shaped at a young age, which is why I've felt inclined to really try to honor the recommendation, because I want to give my child the best chance of just having a healthy taste and recognizing when they've ate enough sweets and what enough sweets is. And I do think that that can come down to the early years of their lives. Now, for me, how did I actually implement that? Like I said, I would usually have something else that my son liked that I could offer him. Fruit, something like a muffin I made myself, or even Cheerios. A lot of young kids enjoy eating Cheerios. So it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be special. Usually they'll be happy with some sort of substitute that they enjoy, and then they won't think another thing about it. Once they each reach the age of 2, they are going to be more aware and they'll want to try these foods. And at that point, we don't want to restrict them because they can then start to feel restricted. And then when they have the opportunity, they may not know how to self-regulate as much if they feel like they need to eat it now or never. So we definitely want to provide those opportunities. Now, one thing I didn't worry about is when we were at someone else's house or sharing a meal with friends or family or even dining out, I did not worry if there was added sugar in a meatloaf from ketchup or in barbecue sauce served that like a chicken was cooked in. I didn't worry about those types of things. To me, that would have been too much. Thanks, guys, for watching this video on babies and sugar. I hope it helped answer all of your questions about sweeteners and added sugars for your little ones, and so that you can just make an intentional decision for your family. So if you want more tips on healthy foods and ideas for your babies and toddlers, be sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my website, dietitianmeetsmom.com.